That's my biggest concern with the Jets evaluating a quarterback is like they swung and missed not only in evaluating Fields, but then they couldn't do anything to get Fields to even resemble what he was a year ago against Pittsburgh or with Pittsburgh, which makes you wonder about what they'll be able to do once they get their hands on a rookie. Again, causing a lot of questions, comments, concerns. You mentioned Jaxson Dart. He's been a fascinating. I know we're not a Giants podcast here, but he's been a fascinating one to kind of see the deterioration of him, because when Brian Daboll was his coach the first 7 starts of his career before that concussion against the Chicago Bears, he was the talk of the town. I mean, he was running guys over, scoring touchdowns, set an NFL record with 5 consecutive games with rushing touchdowns. Just a really, really impressive start. Suffers the concussion. Daboll gets fired. Mike Kafka takes over. He's a completely different quarterback now. I mean, he's averaging 60 fewer passing yards per game, 50 fewer rush yards per game. He was averaging 2.4 touchdowns per game with Daboll. That number is down to just 1 touchdown per game with Mike Kafka. Not running the ball, it almost is like the Giants are trying to make him a pocket quarterback, which has caused him to regress even further. Because the one thing about Dart at this point in his career is he's not a polished passer. He's not somebody that's going to beat you that way. He's best playing in that backyard thing, which was why the whole argument was like, again, the argument with Dart was not run the ball. Just protect yourself. Like, get 5 yards and get down. Get to the sideline and get out. That was the thing, not don't run. And that's where the Giants, in typical Giants fashion, have just gone complete 180. It's funny, though, watching that team because, I mean, this was an organization that was targeting Matt Stafford and trying to trade for Matt Stafford and trying to sign Aaron Rodgers because they believed they were just a quarterback away. The first 7 games with Dart, you get the best quarterback you had the last 2 years. Now suddenly it's, we've got the quarterback, we've got everything else. Now Brian Daboll gets fired, Dart comes back from a concussion, and now it's like you don't even know if you have the quarterback. So you don't have the roster, you don't have the quarterback, you don't have the coach. That is a complete and total disaster. But yeah, if the Giants finish with the number 1 overall pick, I do not anticipate whatsoever they draft Mendoza or they draft Moore. I don't think that happens. I genuinely believe they will trade the pick and they will build around Jaxson Dart. That's what they're going to do. And it's the smart thing to do because while there are questions and concerns with Dart, like there are with any rookie quarterback out there, Caleb Williams had questions and concerns. Drake May had questions and concerns. Jaden Daniels now has questions and concerns his second year. It's going to happen with a young quarterback. You still have seen him succeed at the NFL level, so now it's about building around him. That would put the number 1 overall pick up for sale because there is not this can't-miss generational prospect in this year's class that's a receiver or a lineman or a pass rusher or anything like that. That player's not here. Here's a hypothetical trade. Because I don't believe that the Giants would be so arrogant as to not trade with the Jets and all of their picks to make it happen. This is a trade that is realistic. This is probably what it would cost for the Jets to go from wherever they are up to number 1, assuming they're still within the top 6 or 7 picks. 4th overall pick in this year's draft, the Colts' 18th pick, and a first-round pick next year to go up to number 1. Would you do that, Zach, or is that just too rich to take a Moore or a Mendoza? Or do you have a different price for either of those guys, Moore or Mendoza?
I wouldn't say I necessarily have different. That does feel like a lot, but I don't know. That's a tough one. I'd maybe lean towards not the first next year. They do have 3 firsts next year, though, so I don't know. I mean, maybe if you get another, like a later round pick back from them, like a mid-round pick back from them too, or something like that. I'd probably say yes to that broadly if you really believe in Mendoza or more, but I don't know. That's a lot. That's a lot to give up. So I lean yes, but I'm on the fence, I would say.
I think my only concern with that is by getting rid of that Colts second first-round pick, because the Jets also don't have a third. Am I right? Because that's the Hassan Reddick pick, so they don't have a 3rd-round pick in this year's draft.
Yeah.
For you to essentially have this roster that is, by basically their own admission, a barren wasteland of talent again, because all the players that they thought were good are not. And now you need to infuse the offense with playmakers and the secondary with talent, and the linebacking position needs a rework, and you need probably another pass rusher, and you need interior defensive line help. You need all of those things. Zach, we've looked at free agency. Free agency is not good this year. It is one of the worst free agent classes I can remember in recent years. And in fact, some of the best free agents that were supposed to be available, your Raheed Shaheeds, I always get his name mixed up. The Jacoby Myers, who were then traded to Seattle, and who was the one that got Jacksonville? Thank you. Jacksonville's already re-signed Myers. The Saints are going to do, or the Seahawks are going to do exactly the same thing. So those top prospects aren't even going to be there in free agency to go grab. The Jets, if they want to turn this around or at least get a team that's competent next year, they're going to have to bat 1,000 in the NFL draft. Your odds of finding quality players increase with the more swings you have to at least get one or two over the fence. You start trading a bunch of capital in this year's draft, man, and I find it hard to see them being a competitive team next year because right now, I mean, let's be honest with this team. Aside from a game against the Bengals, who did not have Joe Burrow, aside from, which, by the way, the defense still let up 38 points in that game, and a game against the Cleveland Browns when they were starting Dylan Gabriel and they needed 2 return touchdowns to win that one, the Jets haven't really been that competitive. Like they have, especially the last month and a half of the season. They're just getting their tails kicked in. So it's just, they need picks and they need players. And I know they need their quarterback, but that's a lot to give up. And I still think they probably have to do it because you do need the quarterback. But man, that's going to put a lot of pressure on this team to nail those second round picks and nail some of their late round selections to try to find some gems, which they really haven't done so far.
Yeah, I mean, I would say they are going to have 2 high second round picks in this draft. So I think another route you could go is you trade your first and the Colts first and one of those seconds and maybe like a pick next year, as opposed to giving up all these firsts and hope a team wants guys now, as opposed to the future picks are the more valuable ones. And I would also guess that Trader Darren's going to be trading back in this draft a little bit to get more picks because, like you said, they don't have a third. And they have a lot of holes on this roster. So I would my prediction would be one of those second round picks they trade and move back in that round or something like that. It's really early, but they just need so much. They need, you and I were texting before, they need to change both their scheme and kind of their entire defensive roster. So that's a lot. That's a lot you got to do on top of quarterback, backup quarterback, whatever you do with Breeze, whatever you do with left guard, whatever you do at wide receiver. There's a lot to do. So they need draft picks.
I will say this as the last point here before we move on to the actual game. They need more than anything else to quarterback to come out of this class. When the biggest celebration that you will hear from one Jets drive and fans should absolutely lose their mind is at some point after Oregon is eliminated, if they are eliminated, Moore comes out and says, "I'm entering the NFL draft." That is what the Jets need to happen because if this becomes a 2 top 5 quarterback draft plus Simpson finding himself in that beauty in the eye of the beholder as a top 15, top 10 pick, that's when things change very quickly for the Jets. And that's when this can start looking pretty good because if they can organically have a quarterback fall, say they like all 3 of those quarterbacking options, they love them all. They all have their favorites, but they love them all, and they can draft one organically and keep the mass amount of draft capital they've accumulated from trading guys. Very good players that they now need to replace, but still trading those guys. That's when things benefit this team very, very greatly.